Morning, City fans. Blimey, look at the state of my hair. I need a haircut. This is still a lockdown haircut at the moment from my other half. I don't do anything with it because I don't go anywhere. So, anyway, welcome to another morning dog walk. I'm here, out in the wolds of Lincolnshire as usual. Also introduce you to my co-host, who's always off screen, Charlie. So he's here too. And we're just going to be doing a little video about Lincoln City again this morning. You know how it goes by now. Going to cover yesterday's news, which, you know, typically probably or technically not Lincoln City related, but I'll touch on it anyway. But first of all, I just wanted to make note of the fact that this would actually have been the opening weekend that we're approaching, I believe. Been getting Facebook memories of the away trip to Northampton where we won 1-0 2 years ago, memories of the away trip to Wickham where we drew 2-2, away trip to the home trips against Accrington last season. Morning, Emily. So yeah, it's a really weird situation, isn't it, at the moment, because we're entering August. Football season's no closer. Almost feels to me like it's prolonging summer, because for me, when football season kicks off, summer's just about ending. Traditionally, we always kicked off very late in August. Morning, Scruffy and Charlie. Yeah, morning, Mr. Oxbury. So we always kicked off late in August. Football season kind of signalled autumn coming in. And that's certainly going to be the case again this year. I think this weekend, seeing those kind of videos pop up on my timeline, those memory videos, has really hammered it home what the situation that we're actually in at the moment. We should be full of optimism. He's done a runner. He does it every time I go live. We should be full of optimism, looking forward to a new season. To a degree, I think there's some optimism about. But at the same time, we're into August. There's no football. September the 12th is a start date, but we've no idea when we're going to be back at Sincil Bank. There's still the uncertainty around, how many season ticket holders we'll have, how many games season ticket holders will actually get to see. I think it's just a challenging time. And I think what we need to remember is that, this isn't the club's fault. I saw some criticism of them opening up a second season ticket window. People saying, well, I'd expect me to buy a season ticket and I don't know how many games I'm going to get to. They're having a laugh. I don't think they expect anybody to buy a season ticket. I think what they're doing is giving you the opportunity not to miss out should football resume properly. Should, of the two, let's say Sincil Bank can have 3,000, we've got 5,000 season ticket holders. They're giving you an opportunity to join that bank of people that will see the earlier games. I think also there'll be some form of ballot system so that if you do get one game, you probably won't get the next game, so that it's not the same old faces as again I saw mentioned. But it's challenging. Here we are, we're into August, we haven't got a full squad, we're still waiting for signings. The timelines are just all very, very skewed, and I think it pays just to be aware of that. So I also wanted to touch briefly yesterday on a tweet from an Ipswich Town reporter. Sorry, my dog's disappeared again. On an Ipswich Town reporter who basically, he deleted his tweet, he backtracked in the end, but he basically was saying how Ipswich were doing the right thing by not signing players, and Lincoln, he meant Bristol Rovers, said Bristol City and Blackpool were examples of everything wrong with League One, because we were signing players having voted to end the season. Everybody's signing players because that's what you do in pre-season. There's a season coming. So I just really wanted to say that I think it's a time to end this. Is it virtue signalling? These clubs that, we voted to play on, we voted for football. Lincoln City would have voted for football had football actually been realistically possible in May. But by the time you get to June, financial implications are that you're then paying an extra month's salary on top of everything else that you've got to pay because you've got to go into July. I mean, we've been down this road before. So it really upset me quite a bit, actually, when the journalist and the couple of Ipswich fans jumped on the bandwagon yesterday. But I think, as Lincoln fans, I think we can sit quite comfortably knowing that our club would have voted to play on, but they voted in the best interest of other clubs as well as ourselves. We were the only club that put forward a motion to change the points per game system that didn't affect us, which was around points deductions. And I know that I do have a pro club bias. I get that, and a lot of people who are watching this will have as well. Morning, Gav. But I think we've got to be aware that our club is being run on as morally as possible and as fairly as possible. And I think that this virtue signalling it's got to stop. I don't agree with certainly Blackpool, Mansfield, Bristol Rovers, I believe, paying undisclosed fees when they voted not to play football. So all of a sudden they're finding 75, 80, 90, £100,000. I think Blackpool even, somebody said something like £200,000. I don't know. But I don't think, evening Sam, I don't think, morning Sean, I don't think teams should be spending money on players. I think the free agent market's there to be tapped into. Those that are spending now are taking advantage of the situation, who are spending fees, taking advantage of what happened at the end of last year. And to tie that all the way back into, this should have been the first week of football, and it's not. And yet we've got some clubs, in my opinion, who are rubbing their hands together at that, having really seized the opportunity. And I think we should be proud our club didn't seize an opportunity. However, yesterday's big news, of course, was that Michael Bostwick joined Burton Albion. And some people believe that our club did seize an opportunity to get rid of a lot of players who were very fondly regarded, held in high regard rather by fans, but an opportunity to get rid of them with a good excuse. I don't know if I buy that entirely. I think probably of the released players, all but one or two would have been released anyway. I get that. I didn't make a big thing when Neil Eardley signed for Burton because I think Eards would probably have gone anyway. Was there a better deliverer of the ball in our division? Probably not from fullback. He devastated Burton in the last game that we played. Was there a faster right back in the league? Absolutely. I think he dropped off a little towards the end of the season. Could have been the type of football we were hoping to play. I think we're looking to bring Aaron Lewis through this season. I think that'll be more evident. And, a lot of the people who were saying things like we shouldn't have let Eardley go were the same people that 6 months ago were saying we should drop Eardley and let Aaron Lewis play. But I think when it comes to Bozzie, it's a contentious issue. And as I wrote yesterday, it's because Bozzie's a player we all loved, isn't he? Not because he was a great footballer, because, with the ball at his feet, he probably wasn't a great footballer. He was a good footballer. He could pass the ball. He played League One football, but it was with Bozzie, it was all about attitude. It was all about the thundering tackles, the big headers. When he skewed a pass out of play, which he did on occasion, you glossed over it because he followed it up with a thundering tackle. He followed it up with a massive clearance. He followed it up just with a no-nonsense, average you bastard tackle. Quite scary, that, wasn't it? You're a good lad too, Stu. So I kind of think, it's emotional. Also, when you look at Bozzie, he was our player of the year, the year we won the title. So he was player of the year before we released him, when he signed his new deal. We all thought that perhaps he was looking to end his career here. And we think that there was a place as fans for him in the side, because as fans, we always think there's a place for our fans' favourites in the side. And I'll tie this back to the Keith era. Okay, I remember at the end of the first playoff season, 2002-2003, standing in a nightclub after the Torquay game, and I don't know how I remember it, chatting to Stuart Bimson, who probably had a similar persona to Bozzie. Not exactly the same, but he was no nonsense. The fans loved him. He'd been with us for a few seasons. He was an integral part of the team that got us to the playoffs and would subsequently go on to the Millennium Stadium. When he came off the field at the Millennium Stadium, I wrote in my book that he came off in tears, and it was this overriding image I have is him being the first one through. This proper hard nut, because that's what Bimmo was. Wandering off the field in tears, because it meant something to him. And then he was released. I think we offered him a 1-year deal. To be fair, so it's slightly different, but we offered him a 1-year deal. Cambridge offered him a 2-year, and so he went. And I think there's a similar a similar thing to that, a similar element to that he was a fan favourite and he left. And then a year later, Mark Bailey, who was much more like Bimmo in that, he thundered about the place, he put the tackles in, all that sort of stuff. But again, he left, he went to Macclesfield. Now look at what happened to those two players after they left the club. Bailey had 1 season at Macclesfield. They got to the playoffs. His career finished. Bimmo played a handful of games for Cambridge, and that was it. I think he might have gone to Rushden for a few games. I can't remember. But either way, we made the right decision with those players, and it didn't seem like it at the time. I'll pick up on that, Pete, in a minute. I think that when you look, if you apply hindsight, it's easier to be objective. But right now, at this moment in time, because we remember the Player of the Year, Michael Bostwick, we remember the Michael Bostwick that came in for 18 league appearances, as Pete's just said, last season, and upped our points per game tally in each of when he was in. We looked a better, more solid side. It's easy to then get emotional about we should have kept him. We're not managers. We don't know what Michael wants to do on the field. We know roughly what he wants to do in terms of recruitment, and Bozzie probably didn't fit that. Would we have kept him had COVID not kicked in? I'm not so sure. I think that perhaps we may have done from a PR point of view, but I'm not sure that if we had kept Michael Bostwick, he would have gone on to play 48 games. And that touches on what Pete Summers just said there. Good friend Pete has basically said, Brave, let me go back, Brave is playing 75% 80 fit and much more than it is into a thundering tackle. 18 league appearances isn't that brave. So the suggestion there is that as he neared the end of his contract, Bozzie was less likely to play carrying an injury than he was under Danny and Nicky. I wonder if that might actually be that Michael Appleton is less likely to play a player who's not quite fit. Remember my first meeting with Michael, he told me that when he first walked into the club, the physio's room had like a traffic light system. So there was red, there was amber, there was amber and green. So amber and green, the player could probably play on a Saturday. Amber, if he was needed. Red, he wasn't fit. Green, he could play. And Michael said, it's too complicated. They can either play for me or they can't play for me. If they're not 100% fit, they can't play for me. So I think that was probably one of the reasons that Bozzie stopped playing so many games for us, was that if he wasn't fully fit, one, Michael didn't want to play half-fit players. And secondly, probably with his career, with his contract coming to an end at Lincoln, he didn't want to put his body on the line. The year before, perhaps if we'd just had red and green, can play, can't play, he might have played far fewer games. And I think there's an element that you've got to understand the player's point of view as well, certainly on from last season. I also don't think we can read too much into the fact that Burton offered a one-year deal. People saying, well, we could have offered a one-year deal. We don't know what the terms of that deal are. We don't know his wages. People saying, well, hard up Burton can't offer the same as us. But maybe we could offer comparable wages. It's just that we put different stock in different positions and different ages. So we're offering our wages to players like James Jones, like Lewis Monsma, who we're hoping will develop. And I say hoping because, again, I'm not overly biased. I'm not going to say we'll definitely develop, but we're hoping that they will develop and that the investment that we make will have a return. Whereas if we start handing out big deals to 30, 32, 33-year-olds, we're then running the risk of, one, increased injuries. And I know that's kind of a stereotypical age thing. And you look at Michael O'Connor and Lee Frecklington struggled with injuries towards the end of their time. But then you look at Neil Eardley, who's never really struggled with injuries at Lincoln. And it would be grossly unfair to kind of label him with that. But there is a preconception that older players are more susceptible to injury. And, when you've had a Michael Bostwick who's played 18 games, how many games are we going to get out of him next season? Would the investment for us in Michael Bostwick, 1 year, mean that we then have to invest in another player like Timothy Aoma, who kind of came in and only really covered at the end of last season? So I think there's a tough decision to be made there. Look, the fact is, I would have kept Michael Bostwick, but I'm not Lincoln City manager. And a majority of fans would as well. I know from the comments and from the conversations that I've had with my friend Pete, who's just kind of popped up on the side there, and I don't know if I can put these on the screen. I can. Is that why Big Apple leans towards young players? Possibly so. I've had conversations with Pete, and I know that Pete felt that Lincoln probably wouldn't, or we wouldn't have probably kept Michael Bostwick had COVID not kicked in. And it does give us kind of a nice, convenient cover story for him leaving. I don't know whether I buy that. I do think that from a PR point of view, it would have been a good idea to keep him. But there we go. So I just think that we need to have patience. Again, a conversation yesterday suggested that 6 or 7 games in, if we've only got 2 or 3 points on the board, pressure mounts quickly. I think that would have been the case for any manager, even a manager who had won 3 trophies in as many years. Let me do that because the sun's better that way, isn't it? So, I think the pressure will be on anyway, but it'll be on a lot of teams. And I think you look at comments from teams like Accrington, who their manager said, I think that they can sign 1 player this summer and then maybe 2. Rochdale's manager has said that, they're working on an extremely reduced budget. And when you think about, Jesus Christ, when you think about the budget that they were working on last season, that's a danger. Wimbledon's top transfer target rumoured at the moment is Ollie Palmer, who's no more a League One player than I am, no matter what the Ollie Palmer fans say. So I think it is going to be really challenging in League One this season. Burton are trying basically to kind of bring in the experience, make it solid, and we're looking there a little enviously, going, they've got Erds and Bozzie. But last season, we had Erds and Bozzie when Michael came in, and everyone was saying that we were potential relegation candidates. So it's interesting how perception works. 1 second, Charlie. No, got to put my dog on the lead. The cows are right here. Charlie, hold on. Great TV, this, isn't it? Wait there. So we're back. So just to show you on the walk, I don't know if you can see through there, it's basically cows. So great, love living in the countryside. So there we go. I think you've got to look at the different balances. You've got to take it all in context. I don't think anything can be decided in terms of solid opinions on whether it was a good choice or not. Charlie, come on. Until we kick off and until we're a few games in. So let's have a quick look at some of the comments. Appleton didn't want to lose the likes of Bostwick, Eardley and Vickers and so on, but he had no choice. That's certainly the official rhetoric. So we'll, whether that's right or not, we shall see. We probably won't ever know. Lots from Cornell. Stuart Wells, I tweeted this. Herds and Bozzie, both good players, but not the same players as 2 seasons ago. It frees up wages and we can mold ourselves to sell them for profit in 2 or 3 years. Yes, we can. There is a danger with that, of course, that you become just a Peterborough treading water. I think I'd rather be treading water around the top 10 of League One than I would be overspending at the right end of League Two. What else have we got? Rob Stainton, considering there might not be spectators until 2020, but Burton are taking a certain gamble with paying wages that they're doing. I think our approach is erring on the side of caution. Fair point. I think the only thing there is we don't know what wages Burton are paying. We don't know. We can assume. We can always assume. We assume with Mansfield. We assume with Salford. We assume with everybody, but we don't actually know. Final one from Sean Simons, because my dog, Sean Simons rather, has decided that all he wants to do is stay and look at the cows. So I'm going to have to cut this short in a minute. But Sean says, any news on Chapman? No, I don't. I don't have any news. Not something that I think we'll see any movement on personally. But who knows? We might do, we might not. So, right, I'm going to sort out my unruly dog who wants to go and play with the cows and will get trampled, and then maybe brush my hair. You have a great day, and hopefully we'll do a dog walk over the weekend because you never know what might happen. Have a good day, people.